All right, hey, welcome to another episode of 15-Minute Friday. Today we're joined by Aaron Hathaway, Technical Services Manager for Nufarm, and Crystal Jenkins, the Regional Sales Manager for the Western United States. And this week, it's not going to be me. We're going to lean on Aaron here to discuss or talk about Anew's recent registration in California as a new growth regulator option for superintendents in the state of California. So with that, Aaron, thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time, and the stage is all yours.
Cool. Thank you, Jeff. Good to be here with all of you who are watching. We're going to talk about Anew, which has been registered in the rest of the United States for over 5 years now. So we've had a ton of experience with it. It's been a fun product to learn, and we're still learning. So just a couple notes about how to use Anew. Anew is a Class A PGR. So you see that it's inhibiting the production of GA. In the same place that Trinexpac ethyl or Primo is. And so you're not going to water it in, it's taken up by the foliage. So make a foliar application. You can use an anionic surfactant if you'd like, but it's not absolutely necessary. The one couple caveats that I'll mention as you hear, as you hear in the news kind of moving forward, is in the rest of the United States, we're actually registering a liquid version of Anew. It's going to be called, or it is called Anew EZ. So that's going to be a liquid formulation that's going to be out for everybody. California is going to continue to have this WDG until the liquid gets registered in California. So it's coming in California, but as we're learning, registering certain products in California takes a little bit longer, but we'll get there. So right now you have a WDG. It's very easy to work with, and the one thing I want to mention is at the very bottom. And this goes for the liquid formulation or the WDG. If you are using a water source that has calcium in it, 140 parts per million calcium or boron, those two in particular, those can antagonize Anew. Anew is prohexadione calcium. So that calcium gets dissolved out the molecule, and then uptake by the plant happens. It's not until that happens that uptake happens. If there's other free calcium in the water, it can then glom onto that molecule and prevent that uptake by the plant. So that's an important piece to remember, and it's an easy fix. Adding ammonium sulfate or whatever your distributor has, they make lots of different versions, liquid versions of ammonium sulfate or other products that will tie up those ions that may be in your water carrier. So that's one thing that I always mention to people. If you are using ammonium sulfate, you can simply add 1 pound of AMS for every pound of Anew that you're putting in the tank. It's that easy, and that will kind of fix the problem. The amount of nitrogen from that it's negligible. It's very little. Okay, so you've probably seen these charts before, and I just like to kind of give everybody a refresher, but this is 100% of the untreated turf. You'll see me fly through a couple of these slides. I want to keep the time down. I want to keep it within 15 minutes as much as possible, but you'll have access to this. I'll send this slide set to Jeff, and he can send it off to you if you'd like to see a little bit more in detail that I don't cover as I'm speaking here. But this is a familiar site to many of you probably. And Bill Kreuzer did a lot of this work where you're looking at growth reduction of the plant, and here's trim it, and we see that each PGR is not created equal. Even though Trinexpac and Anew are inhibiting GA production at the same spot, they last a little bit. One will last a little bit longer on some species than the other, and there will be other nuanced differences. And the two big ones are intensity of regulation and duration, how long it's going to last in the plant before you have to make another application. And so we really want to stay as much as possible in this even growth regulation throughout the season. That's really the goal, because when you hit this rebound, which is more evident in cool season turf than it is in warm season turf, you start to lose all the benefits. So all these benefits that we see from PGR applications, increased color, less water use, less mowing. If you get to the rebound where you actually get more growth than if you never made the application of the PGR in the first place, then you actually go backwards with all those things. All the benefits, they go away. In fact, you decline in those. You're going to mow more. You're going to use more water. So all those things go in reverse. So understanding the reapplication intervals, intensity of these PGRs is pretty important because of that. All right, so current uses in California right now it can be used, and you'll see this on the label, on common and hybrid Bermuda grass fairways and roughs. The labeled rate range is 12 to 24 ounces per acre. In kikuyu grass fairways and roughs, and the only rate allowed in California for kikuyu grass is 12 ounces per acre. And I know that may be a letdown to you, as we only have those 2 species on the label right now. We're going to work really hard in the coming years to get more species added. And this year we're going to have sites in California. They're only allowing us to provide efficacy data in California at this point. So we're going to get more species. I'm going to look at bentgrass and ryegrass in 2023 and hopefully get those on the label quickly. So look for those changes. I'm going to kind of focus on these 2 legal uses in California, since that's what you're going to see on the label. Bermuda grass fairways. What I'll say about Anuew, and we'll see this a little bit as we move forward, but Anuew is going to be a safer PGR in Bermuda grass, especially during maybe the shoulders of the season when it's easy to get maybe a little too much intensity, or you stack a little of those PGR applications on top of each other, and too much intensity comes from that, whatever the case may be. All of our uses of Anuew in Bermuda grass, we've done a lot of research in California and Bermuda grass. All of our research has always shown this darker green color, high quality turf on Bermuda grass. We rarely, if ever, have seen too much regulation, even on really high rates. But we're going to get a lot of the same things that you're going to get from other PGRs: reduced mowing, reduced scalping potential, increased plant health. And I'll talk about this, but mixtures may make a lot of sense when it comes to PGR applications on Bermuda grass fairways, and I'll talk about why that is. Kikuyu grass, it's a really strong regulator of kikuyu grass. It's the reason California DPR would only give us the use rate of 12 ounces per acre on kikuyu grass, because it didn't matter if we doubled that rate. We seem to have this similar amount of growth regulation at both rates. And so you could definitely even possibly go lower than that 12 ounce per acre rate. And I think people, as they play with these PGRs, will figure out that more. We've seen great suppression of kikuyu grass, high quality turf when we're making applications on kikuyu grass. And we've also seen some seed head suppression from Anuew use on its own. And these applications were usually 2 weeks apart. So making applications every 2 weeks, and we've had good seed head suppression or filament suppression in kikuyu grass. When we're talking about these intervals, here are the fairways. So Primo's lasting a little bit longer in Bermuda grass fairways than Anuew. And of course, the Class B PGRs, they're lasting a little bit longer yet. So duration is different on Bermuda grass in these cases. And of course, on greens, the same is going to be true. But what we tend to see, and we've done research all over the place, this is Bermuda grass at North Carolina State. And we've seen this time and time again, where the potential to overregulate or to have too high of intensity from Primo is often there, and you get this off color or this discoloration or bronzing of the turf. Where Anuew, we don't tend to see that. And this is especially in the shoulders of the season, when it's just easier to get too much regulation and see that bronzing. We've seen it in a lot of different places, so I'm just showing these pictures just to illustrate that, where Anuew is always offering us this dark green color, as it seems to be just a safer PGR overall in Bermuda grass. When it comes to growth suppression, which is really what we're looking for to realize all the benefits, you'll see that this yellow line, this is on Bandera Bermuda grass in California. This yellow line is Primo at 11 ounces per acre. This dark green line here is Anuew at 24 ounces per acre. And so those are fairly similar applications. And we've seen this, over 4 years of doing research on Bermuda grass, where Anuew at 24 ounces and Primo at 11 ounces are going to be pretty similar on a lot of different cultivars of Bermuda grass. But what I like about Anuew is you can cut that rate in half and get a big difference. You can start to play with those rates and cut that growth regulation in half. And then even go lower and kind of key in exactly how much intensity that you want with Anuew PGR. And so those rates are really going to change the intensity of the regulation that you get as you change them, as you go from 12 up to 24 possibly. We've seen similarities with Tahoma 31 and Latitude 36, where here's Anuew and here's a mixture of the two, and here's Primo down here. So Anuew is going to just be a lot safer as far as regulation. The chances of regulating too much especially in the shoulders, just aren't there because you're getting, for one thing, less suppression, and then the chance that you're going to see bronzing as a result of that is much less. So what do you get as far as growth regulation? What kind of benefits have we seen? We've seen less scalping. So whether it's Anuew or Primo, Anuew at the lower rate, 12 ounces or 24 ounces, we've seen really good safety from scalping as you reduce that growth, especially in the heat of the summer. And then I wanted to bring up some mixtures. And so we've done some research with Kreuzer on Northbridge Bermuda grass. And I'll also show you a cultivar after this where we saw stronger regulation of Anuew on another cultivar than Primo. And so it really depends on the cultivar you have in your fairways. Because, and we'll see this with bentgrass as well, some PGRs will affect different cultivars even within the same species differentially. And so we'll see that from time to time. But for the most part, on most of the species, we're seeing, the main thing we're seeing is that Anuew is safer and that it's providing softer regulation than Primo Max. So we've done some research on Northbridge. This was in Texas, where we look at a bunch of different treatments here, a bunch of different mixtures. And the reason I want to show this is because I want to show you how versatile some of these mixtures can make PGR applications on Bermuda grass. And some of the idea here is getting maybe some of the longevity from some of the Class B PGRs and getting the safety from some of the Class A PGRs as you mix them together. And so you can kind of play with that Class A PGR rate, that Anuew rate, and then get the duration from something like Cutlass or Florprimadol. I'm not going to go through this slide too much, but all the injury you see up here, this is from an application on May 26th in Texas on Bermuda grass, on a Bermuda grass fairway. It's Northbridge, and you see some overregulation from a lot of these treatments. Some of this is Primo at the high rate at 12 ounces, and even Primo at a 6-ounce rate cause a little bit of bronzing, but then Legacy can cause some bronzing. Cutlass at the 36-ounce rate can cause some bronzing, but Anuew again seems to be just a very safe PGR. It's continued to give you that darker green color. But then when you start to look at mixtures like 12 ounces of Cutlass plus 6 ounces of Anuew, you can maintain that safety because you're using Anuew mixed with a Class B PGR, which is providing that safety using a lower rate of each and giving you a chance to then make an application of a Class B plus maybe 6 ounces of Anuew. And then if you want to increase the intensity from there, maybe even going up to 12 ounces of Anuew, you can do that. So you can get the duration of that Class B and then play with the intensity with the rate of Anuew. And so I think that's going to be a really nice use for Anuew, is mixing with the Class B as you see fit moving forward, getting the duration of the Class B and then playing with the rate of Anuew to increase intensity. I promised that I would show one cultivar where the tables were turned. I mentioned that we see the same thing in bentgrass often, where Anuew will really regulate pure distinction, for instance, but then on Pencross, it regulates it less. And these cultivars can be very different from each other. And so I wanted to show a cultivar Bermuda grass where we saw a difference. And so some of this is going to come down from superintendents using these products, Anuew in particular, as it's a newer one in California, and figuring out how their particular cultivar on their particular golf course is going to differentially cause regulation in Primo. But we've given you some principles, I think, moving forward that are going to help end users figure out how to start these applications. So this was a 1-inch height, so maybe more of a sports field turf in this case, applied every 2 weeks. You see Anuew at low and high, Primo at low and high, and then a mixture. Same thing, they're collecting clippings like a lot of these and kind of measuring those clippings to look at growth regulation. And you see that the tables have turned here. So for iron cutter in particular, which is becoming more and more popular, Anuew at 12 ounces, 26 days after the initial app was providing statistically more regulation than Primo at either 11 or 14. And even 56 days after treatment, this trend continued, especially at the 24 ounce. At 12 ounce, it was pretty much the same as Primo at 14 or 11. So and then you can play with the mixture from there for sure. But this just illustrates how things can really change depending on the cultivar you're looking at, because we can't possibly look at every single cultivar. This is something that superintendents will have to figure out with these principles in mind, that most of the time Anuew is going to just be a softer regulator. It's always going to be a safer regulator, especially in the shoulders of the season. But the duration of regulation is really going to be captured by that class B, and then you can play with intensity by adding Anuew at different rates. You can see that even here, even though it was providing more suppression, it was still providing high turf quality and high turf color, even at those heavy suppression, even in the heavy suppression of iron cutter here. All right, so kikuyu grass, I can go through this one quickly. I already mentioned that this is the only labeled rate on kikuyu grass in California. It's because we just didn't see enough, or California didn't see enough of a difference between the rates to allow us to put 24 on the label. So same type of thing, biweekly applications of these 3 treatments in kikuyu grass. And you can see here's Primo. I'll explain these box and whisker plots real quick. This is the median. This is 9 dates, so lots of data from 9 different dates in clippings. So higher means there was more growth, lower means there was less growth. But in these box and whisker plots, it's 9 dates in one. So it's showing the median here. Above the median in the box is 25% of the data. Below the median in the box is 25%. And then each whisker is another 25% of the data. So it kind of shows all these evaluations kind of in one box. But you can see how consistent Anuew is providing growth suppression on kikuyu grass through these 9 dates in 2019. So really good suppression of kikuyu grass versus untreated and even Primo. But then still high quality. So high quality, this is NDVI, dark green color index over many dates, same thing. High color, darker green color, high visual color, high quality, even though we're getting good suppression, really heavy suppression of kikuyu grass. More visual quality. So we did this many years again and always had high quality turf. We were making applications every 2 weeks. And then I'll mention the seed heads, and we've seen this in Anuew bluegrass and other species as well, but we continue to see it with kikuyu grass, where Anuew is providing some seed head suppression. This is on a scale from 1 to 10. So here's the untreated, 6 days after the 4th application, and then 13 days after the 13th application. You can see the reduction from both Anuew at 12 ounces and 24 ounces. So all those things kind of summarized right here. We've seen lots of, you can look at these slides on your own. We've seen lots of people adopt use during the transition in the spring from ryegrass to Bermuda grass. The reason they really like it is because it's a foliar absorbed product. So you can really cause that foliar absorption by the ryegrass, not by the bentgrass, which is maybe underneath that canopy at this point, but also get really heavy suppression of Anuew bluegrass, which is one of the big differences between Anuew and Primos, that you get really good suppression of Anuew bluegrass, which you see in that picture. And then we've seen it in a lot of this data in creep and bentgrass as well. I'm not going to go through this. I don't want to take the time, but we've seen really high suppression of Anuew bluegrass. And most of the time it's a weed. And so based on that rate, as you increase the rate, you can get more and more suppression. It's never going to work like a post-emergence herbicide and just smoke it all, but you can get really heavy suppression and favor one species over another. And then help in off types, the mixing Anuew and Primo together has been a really nice use for hybrid Bermuda grass greens, especially as this gets added to the label later. Just something I wanted to mention is you can start to more evenly regulate in a lot of different situations when you start mixing. All right, we raced through some of that, and hopefully as you see this, you'll have some principles to kind of follow as you begin recommending uses for California, and then you can always reach out to us when you have other questions, and then we'd be happy to talk to you. So thank you very much.
Hey, appreciate it, Aaron. Good information. My question for you, I guess, with the new product coming into a market, folks might be introducing this to a tank mix for the first time. You mentioned that high calcium concentration, hard water potentially can cause some efficacy issues, but are there any tank mixing issues with the WDG formulation that you're aware of?
The only tank mixing issue is when you're using a nutrient that includes calcium. So that one in particular, same fix. So using ammonium AMS can help in that situation. But most of the time I'm encouraging people simply not to tank mix those two things together. But no other tank mixing issues besides nutrient-based products that contain calcium in particular.
Great. All right. Good information. Thank you.
Cool.
Appreciate the
Thank you.
information.